Because you know we got George Noory, and he said he's captive. He can't get out of here to be taken to the airport in the morning. Okay. But he will do some picture taking later on, he says. And he'll be talking to all of you at the mixer that follows this. He's going to be very interactive with everybody. But it's a great honor to have him here. Like he said, he was on the air till 4 o'clock this morning. He got a few hours sleep, got on the plane. Then it was delayed out of Chicago. But he says he's still running. You're like the everybody energy buddy. You're still going. Okay. But we're real honored to have him here, and I don't think he needs any introduction. You all know the Coast to Coast AM radio show. To me, I think it's the biggest in the world, really, isn't it? The last I heard, 30 to 40 million listeners, or is it grown?
Maybe 50.
Ah. And it's more syndicated than any other radio show in the world, too. So I don't think there's anywhere you can go, especially you said the United States, Guam, but you're being heard in the other countries, too. Come over here.
Is that my introduction, Dolores?
Come on over here.
Come here?
Okay. We'll talk to you that far.
Hello, I'm George Noory.
Okay.
You know, she was a guest of mine when I was doing my St. Louis local show, the Nighthawk show, back in 1997.
He was a beginner in those days.
She used to tell me everything to say. Wonderful guest then, even a greater guest now, Dolores Cannon. Thank you.
You are the guest.
And thanks for the introduction. She gave my speech, so nice seeing all of you.
Well, how many different, not countries, but they're heard in other countries?
Oh, we are heard worldwide on the internet. We're picked up on various ways. People are listening now on YouTube and things like that.
Now. Okay.
And we're the highest affiliated station in North America at night. 573 radio stations. Thanks to you.
And I know a lot of people tell me they record the show because they don't want to stay up all night.
That is absolutely right. A lot of people can't. A lot of people have to get to bed.
Okay. Before you begin, I'm going to turn the tables on you.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Tell us how you got started in this whole thing.
By luck. Well, there was a guy named Art Bell. Know the name?
You know him. I started in Art Bell, too.
And one day he decided to retire again. And there I was. It was fate. Something I'll talk about in a moment about that.
Okay. I just thought I'd turn the tables on you.
Okay.
Ask you a question. Okay, Art Bell. No.
I'm going to drop you down Mel's hole.
Talk about a Freudian slip. Where did that come from?
God, he still follows me around, doesn't he?
I have no idea where that came from.
Thanks, Nostradamus.
I'm embarrassed. I don't know where
That's
that came
all right. That happens.
from. Okay, George Noory.
Hey, thanks, Dolores.
Now you got it.
I've got to tell you, in my life, that's the first introduction. Come here. Thanks, Dolores. Now, how many of you live in Arkansas? Where are you all from? Everywhere. Truly amazing. How many of you have been to any of my other events? So this is a first for all of you? Great. I can say some of the jokes that you haven't heard. Well, it's great to be with you. And, you know, as Dolores was saying, I got off the air at 4 o'clock in the morning, St. Louis time, Central Time. Then I was picked up at 9 o'clock and whisked over here. And the St. Louis flight this is strange. They don't have a flight from St. Louis to Bentonville. So I had to fly to Chicago, landed at O'Hare, had a delayed flight because the pilot wasn't there. He overslept or something. They had to look for a new pilot. Those are always weird when you're getting on a plane and they say, the pilot's not here. Are there any volunteers? But I made it. It was a great flight, and here I am, and thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. We're going to have a great time here. You know, one of the things I always insist on when I travel to various events, and I'm all over the map these days, is so I don't want to drive because I don't know where I'm going. I just simply ask for a driver to pick me up at the airport and to get me to where I have to go. And Dolores was kind enough to do that for me here. And I always, other than today, travel with my producer, Tom Danheiser, who's like my right-hand assistant. And he's in Los Angeles, so I basically gave him the weekend off. I said, Tom, look, I'm in St. Louis. This is a quick flight for me. For you in LA, you know, you got to travel halfway around the globe. Don't worry about it. I'll handle it by myself. Big mistake. We land here at the airport, and I'm going, so where's my car? It's not here. And so I called Tom, and he said, I don't know, it's supposed to be there for you. And I'm waiting, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting, and the car's not there. And I'm looking at my watch, and I'm saying, you know what, I got to get to where I'm supposed to go. I'm running out of time. I called Tom back again. I said, Tom, what do I do? He says, take a bus. I said, take a bus? And he said, yeah, take a bus. So the first bus that came down by your airport, I jumped on. It was a senior citizens bus. I had no idea where I was going. I was sitting in the front, and the bus driver said, look, I can get you really close to the hotel. You might have a mile to walk after I drop you off. And so I sat there. Now, while we were doing this 25-minute trip down to this hotel, which is a great hotel, it's huge, this little old lady, she must have been about 90 years old, kept walking up to the driver, handing him peanuts. And he kept popping them in his mouth. This must have happened 3 or 4 times. And I'm watching this going, this is weird. And so by the 5th time she comes up to him and gives him a handful of peanuts and he pops them in his mouth, he finally said to her, lady, don't you like peanuts? And she stopped and looked at him and said, oh no, we're in the back. We all love peanuts. We just don't have any teeth, so we suck the chocolate off them first. I'm kidding, I got picked up by a driver. A lot of people have asked me about this metamorphosis. How did this all happen? And as I tell you about it, you're going to understand these strange synchronicities of life that occur in probably all our lives on a regular basis. I mean, it's truly unbelievable. But as we were saying, we are now on 573 radio stations across North America. It is absolutely huge. It was 440 when I took over. The audience continues to grow. And just this week, the network has done something that is unprecedented in radio broadcasting. And that is they basically insisted that I sign a very, very long-term contract with them to keep us going well into when astronauts land on Mars. And so I did, and I wanted to share that with you today. You know, it's really fun. I am now making $2.25 an hour, but I'm happy. But people ask, you know, how did this all start for you? What happened? Let's go way back when I'm 11 years old. And I have an out-of-body experience. I stayed home from school, never missed school, but this day I had a fever. Stayed home from school, and I woke up in what I thought was a dream. I'm bouncing up on the ceiling, and I realize there's something wrong here because I can see myself in the bed. And at that very instant, it rammed me right back into my body. Now, in those days, we didn't have computers. I mean, you had to go to the library if you wanted to research anything, and that's what I did. And I stumbled across a book on astral projection by two Englishmen, Sylvan Muldoon and Hayward Carrington. It was called Projections of the Astral Body. And I realized that's exactly what happened to me. And from that moment on, I was hooked with these mysteries, these unusual things that were out there. And short time later, a few years later, my mother gave me a book called We Are Not Alone. That was written by Walter Sullivan. He was the New York Times science writer at the time. And I just digested that. And then, Look magazine. Remember magazines? I don't know if they have them anymore, do they? But they did the story on the Barney and Betty Hill case, the interrupted journey of the alien abduction case, really the first major one out there. And at this very young age, I said to myself, this is what I want to do for a living. I want to go into broadcasting. I want to unravel these stories because I figured a broadcaster can get to the people who are experiencing these things, and that's what I'm going to do. So I started programming myself to be a radio broadcaster. And then you talk about life's synchronicities. I was into science, I was into metaphysics, I was into intelligent design, I was into all these things at this very young age. I used to make, and did anybody ever do this when they were kids, model rockets and fly them and launch them? The company was called Estes out of Colorado. Loved it. Loved the thing. I would make them like crazy. I even got to the point where I was building little capsules in the rocket, launching frogs. 200, 300, 400 feet, sometimes 1,200 feet into the air. And just when it reached the peak, it would pop and the capsule would come down by a parachute. The little frogs would land and I'd let them go into the little pond where I found them in the first place. Can you imagine what they told their buddies? What a ride this was. But I would do that. And I had a buddy of mine, and he loved rocketry too. So we had an agreement. I said, listen, you take these little engines and you put them in the rocket and you launch it, but I'm going to broadcast the launch to the entire neighborhood. And so he'd hook these little electrodes up, and I would go, 10, 9, 8. I must have been 15 years old. And, I'd get down to 0, he'd hit the button, and he'd launch the rocket. And then you talk about synchronicity. I end up being a broadcaster, and my buddy, his name is Gary Frank, built the engines for the space shuttle. Now, isn't that weird, how all these things happen? So then at the age of 19 years old, I get my first broadcasting job. I'm a production assistant, which is a glorified title, which means I got coffee for the people who work there. But I had a great time doing it, and I learned, and I just digested it. At 21, I got my first radio job on the air, and my very first radio interview was with Stanton Friedman, the person I call the father of modern-day ufology, who's still a regular guest on Coast to Coast. And it's a small world. But then, to tell you how this evolution occurs, I interviewed Dr. Benjamin Simon, who is the psychiatrist who was dealing with the Barney and Betty Hill case. And, I couldn't get enough of this. And I asked him specifically, and I will always remember this. I said, were they telling you the truth? And he said, based on what they think happened to them, they were telling the truth. They were not lying. They didn't make this up. I don't know what happened to them. What they told us, that they were abducted by these weird-looking extraterrestrials and all these strange things, they actually, and separately, by the way, under hypnosis, said the same thing. Believed that this is what happened to them. And it was just, for me, riveting, and I could never stop, and I can't stop now. And so, as my career started to flow, I was a news director, I won some Emmy Awards, and I did all the things I had to do. The one thing I was missing in my life was doing talk radio. I'd done everything except that. And I was watching a movie called Talk Radio with Eric Bogosian. Some of you will remember that. It was about a real-life Denver talk show host who got killed after one of his broadcasts by a neo-Nazi group. And sad ending there. And so I used that as my crux, and in St. Louis, I kept calling radio stations. Everybody knew me, but they said, George, you've never done talk radio before. And this one guy at a great station in St. Louis, KMOX, which I think beams into here for the Cardinal games, he hired me to do some fill-in talk radio. And I would get my own guests. I would set up Stanton Friedman. Most of the guests that were on Coast to Coast I had on my local show there. He called me into his office about 2 days later after I was doing some of these stories. Dolores was one of our guests. And he said, George, I want you to do talk radio. And I said, well, Tom, I am doing talk radio. And he said, no, you're doing UFOs and this Nostradamus stuff. And I just want you to know there's no future for you doing that. He, to this day, kicks himself for saying that. Well, eventually, a fellow by the name of Mike Siegel, you remember Mike? He had filled in when Art retired the first time, and he started doing Coast to Coast, but I knew him. And I said, Mike, if you ever need any backup, send my tape to the folks at the network. I was in St. Louis doing my little show, and he said, okay. Well, about 2 days later, I got a call from the network that said, can you do some fill-in for Art Bell? And I said, you mean Mike Siegel? They said, no, Art Bell, we've just let Mike go. And I said, gosh, how weird is this? And so I became Art's regular backup guy while I was still doing my local talk show in St. Louis. As Art began to wane again, his back started hurting him, and he had some other personal issues, and he decided just didn't want to do this anymore. I would be the regular backup guy that they would call. Now, I would be on the air in St. Louis from 9 p.m. to midnight, and then Coast to Coast would be on from midnight to 4 in the morning. So I would get done with my local show at midnight and run down and do Coast to Coast in another little studio for the network. And I did that 2-3 times a week, and it kept getting more and more. And they would call me on some days, I kid you not. I'd be on the air doing my local show, and they would say, we don't know if Art's going on tonight, so you need to be ready to do the show. And I said, you got to be kidding me. And I said, well, how will I know? They said, when you hear the Coast to Coast theme and don't hear Art say anything, you're on. And I said, you got to be kidding me. And he said, no, that's just the way it is. So I'd go in the studio and I'd, dun, 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 dun. And if I didn't hear it from the high desert, it was me. And that started, and then eventually, back in 2002, Art decided to retire, and thanks to all of you, here I am. I've made one mistake. I made one mistake in my broadcast career. Well, I made two. I'll tell you the other one in a second. But when I came in 2002, full-time 2003, I said, what a glorious, smart promotion this will be when I retire at the Mayan calendar end date. It's 10 years away. And then all of a sudden, when it was 2012, and we were getting close to December 21st, I said, I ain't gonna retire. That was one mistake. And another one I did locally in St. Louis was a woman had been killed by her boyfriend. He didn't like the steak that she had made for him. It was too gristly, and when he came home to eat it, he didn't like it. He cut the steak, he took the gristle, and he stuffed it down her throat, and she choked to death and died. True story. Manslaughter. He didn't want to kill her, but he killed her. He was getting out after 6 months. The sister of the dead woman and the dead woman's daughter were furious. And so they came on my show, and we were talking about the case. And they're both crying. They're both upset. And my very first question to both of them was, why are you so upset? What's your beef? Gosh. And it dawned on me just how careful you have to be with your words all the time. So, when I do this program, constantly, I am looking for ways to be right on, spot on, and not to make these kind of silly mistakes that I made earlier on in my life. But to me, I got better. Well, they just cried, and the guy got out. He got out with 6 months, and that was it. But, I learned that this world is full of synchronicities. As you know, on the air, I say, there are no coincidences. None. Everything happens, I think, for a reason. Everything is predetermined. Why would I interview Dolores Cannon back in 1997 on a local radio station, and then now she continues to be a guest on the syndicated show? These things don't happen by accident. There's something, and I don't know exactly what it is, that manipulates and moves and pushes these things that are deep within all of us all the time. I mean, how many of you have had these synchronicities happen? Constantly. I mean, it defies logic. You just can't figure it out. And so I just go with the flow now because it's there. There's something in the universe. There's something, and Lynn McTaggart would call it the field. There's something that we're all interconnected to on a regular basis, and you just might as well go with it and understand it and be prepared for it, whether it's in your dream state or anything else. We're all interconnected. I believe that in your dream state, you can make things happen. I would, when I would go to bed before the Coast to Coast job came about, concentrate on the one guy who had the ability to hire people. That was Alan Corbett. And then I'd go to sleep. Several days later, he was the one who called me. How does this happen? It's synchronicity, and believe me, there are no coincidences. How many of you have seen the movie Network? One of my favorites. The late Peter Finch played the part of Howard Beale. And my favorite line was how government is taking advantage of people, which I want to talk about here in a second. And he would say, look, leave me alone. Just give me my radial tires and my toaster and my television. Leave me alone. I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. And so we're going to do this quick exercise for a moment. Those of you who have the ability to stand up, would you please stand up? Look at Dolores saying, what is he doing? At a count of three, this is just the cleansing part. At a count of three, I just want you to yell out, I'm as mad as hell, I'm not going to take it anymore. I give you my word, you'll feel better. You ready? 1, 2, 3. I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. Let's do it another time. That wasn't loud enough. 1, 2, 3. I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. One more time. 1, 2, 3. I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. Feel better? Now I want you to hop on one leg. I always wanted to control an audience that way. What is happening to our planet? Looking at our text messages, reading our emails, monitoring things that we have. I just had a story a few days ago where every car probably has already been recorded, the license plate. That no matter, you make me going to the grocery store, police have a record of where you were or whoever was in that car at any given time. As I have told Alex Jones many times, and why this consciousness ability and all of you getting together is so critical. We are at a point in our lives where what you are seeing happening worldwide right now is happening all around the planet, and eventually it'll happen here. People are fed up with government getting involved in everything they do. Anybody here from the NSA? I bet you are. There's one person here from the NSA. Look to your left. Look to your right. Is it him or her? Are they taking notes? Huh? Are they sweaty? You know, I have so many guests on Coast to Coast, and just when they're about to talk about something very critical, their phone line goes dead. Just clicked, just like that. I had Jordan Maxwell on one day, and he said after he was clicked off, he could still hear voices saying, "You think he got the message?" It is very, very strange. So we are going through a period in our lives right now, and that's why programs like Coast to Coast and Alex Jones's show is so critical to keeping you aware of what is happening so it just never happens again. This poor old Edward Snowden, who's now got temporary asylum in Russia, nobody wants him really. Is he a traitor or is he a hero? I think a hero. I think this guy saw all these heinous, stupid things that were being done under the auspices of protecting us from terrorism, and he couldn't take it anymore, and he was mad as hell, and he decided to say something. And good for him for having the guts to come forward and to say something like that. And that's what we're going to do for you too on Coast to Coast. We are not going to stop. You know, we are not going to let them win. I think we're going to go through this incredible moment of life, this huge roller coaster, but in the long run, we're going to win out. They cannot control the masses. They'd love to. They're trying, but we're going to win. Strange things do happen to people. 3 guys died one day, and they all went up to heaven. And St. Peter was there, meeting them at the gates, and said, "Guys, I'm sorry, I'm booked." And they all looked at each other. "What do you mean you're booked?" They said, I'm not letting anybody in. Well, I'll tell you what, this is what I'll do. I'll let you in if you died under very unusual circumstances. That's all I have room for. What happened to you? And this first guy said, "Well, for years I suspected my wife was having an affair on me." St. Peter says, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, I decided I was going to go home and catch her. So I left work early. We live on the 24th floor of a high-rise apartment in New York. And so I went up to my 24th floor apartment, and I heard noises in that apartment. And St. Peter, I broke down the door. I went running in the bedroom. She was there, alone. I felt like an idiot. So I walked outside to kind of get my composure. And as I'm looking over the balcony, I look down, and there's a guy holding onto my ledge with his fingers looking up at me, screaming, "Help me, help me." I started stepping on his fingers. He wouldn't let go. I went in the house and got a hammer, and I'm smashing his fingers. St. Peter, he let go. He fell 24 floors, landed into a bush. And he's looking up at me. He's alive. So I went into the kitchen. I got the refrigerator, pushed it out over the ledge, heaved it, and it landed right on him. But I died of a heart attack. And St. Peter said, that's unbelievable. Come on in. And he goes up to the second guy and said, what happened to you? He said, I don't know. I live on the 25th floor of an apartment building in New York, and I was doing my exercises up there, and the wind came and blew me off, and by the luck of God, I caught the ledge of the 24th floor. And I'm there screaming for help, and some guy comes out. I'm going, thank God I'm saved. St. Peter, he started stepping on my fingers. He wouldn't let go. He's just stomping on me, and I'm yelling and screaming. Then he goes in and gets a hammer and starts hammering my fingers. I had to let go. And I fall 24 floors. I land in a bush. But then I look up and I get hit by a refrigerator. St. Peter says, oh my God, come on in. And he goes up to the last guy and goes, what happened to you? He said, I don't know. Picture this. I'm hiding in a refrigerator. See, life takes some strange turns, doesn't it? There's a little couple in Springfield, Illinois. They went to the state fair every year. Every year. And every year, they would argue over a $50 helicopter ride. Every year. He'd want to do it, she wouldn't. And the same pilot would hear this argument every year. Over a $50 just for a helicopter ride. Finally, after like the 8th year, the pilot, hearing them bicker, said, folks, I'm going to do something for you. And they went, what? I'm going to give you a free helicopter ride. It's free as long as you can sit in that helicopter and not open your mouth at all. They said, fine, we'll do it. So he puts them in the helicopter, and they're spinning around, they're going up, they're going down, up and down and up and down. She falls out. He's still going up and down, and he finally lands the helicopter. He turns around and doesn't see the wife. And the guy's there, mouth quiet. And the pilot says, what happened? He said, well, she fell out. And he said, why didn't you say anything? He said, $50 is $50. You didn't know I was going to turn this into an entertainment show, do you? If you had a band here, I'd sing some songs. I did that in Toronto a couple of weeks ago. I had a great time. Well, I like to do what I call something very interactive, and that is to take your phone calls, to basically do open lines at these events. No holds barred. You just ask me a question, and we get into that. And we'll do that, except I do want to ask you all one question. Do you think, show of hands, that we, in the long run, will win and succeed, or do you think they will? How many think we will? I do too. That's a great outlook. It's very positive, and that's the best way to do. I think, Farrell, do we have a hand mic for people in the audience? Oh, great. Show of hands, if you would, and let's start taking some questions about what we do, the show, what you think is going on in the world.
I know.
And mention your name and where you're from.
I'm Laris. I'm from New Jersey.
You have come a long way.
Yes. Can I ask my question?
Yes, you can. Whoa.
Where you get your jokes from?
Well, let me ask a question to you first. Do you like the jokes? No, don't answer. I find them from places. Or they find me. I happen to like them. Did you? Yeah. Next question, right up front here. And just stand up and give us your name and where you're from.
Ilse Bonham from Houston, Texas, and yes, I drove 12 hours.
Good for you.
Traffic.
Thank you.
Have you had any attempts on your life? Because I was born in South
I just had one right over there.
and you're familiar with the dictatorships in several South American countries, and of course Europe and Northern Europe. So have you had any attempts on your life here in this good old USA? And how do they try to keep you from talking about the truth?
I've had nothing done successfully on my life yet. I'll tell you that. Actually, no. The show is being monitored. I know that for a fact. I have never had anything confrontationally happen except for one time. I went to Mexico a year and a half ago to a wedding of some friends, and on the way back to the airport, the driver, who was nervous and shaking and just uncontrollable, was talking on a two-way radio, not a telephone, a two-way radio to somebody, and he was taking me through an area of town in Cabo where I didn't come through that way when I came from the airport to the hotel. He was taking me to these back areas, and it was just very strange. And then the van broke down. And then I said to myself, there's something wrong here. And he's still talking, shaking on his two-way radio. I decided, you know what, it's time to get out of this van. I reached for the door latch, and it had been sawed off and broke off in my hand. I couldn't get out the door. And so while he is standing up trying to talk to somebody, I got over two seats. I'm in the third row of this van and got out the driver's side. He's nervous. He doesn't know what's going on. Cars are starting to show up. I waved down a driver. I had $100 in my hand and said, I need to go to the airport now. And he said, okay, man, come on. And off I went. Fortunately, he wasn't with these other people. And like 4 other cars started chasing him. And then I got to the airport. When I came back to the United States, Homeland Security said that it was a classic case of trying to be kidnapped, and then they take you to the ATM and they drain it, and then they do you in. And in my case, they would have done me in right away because it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, they call that the millionaire trip.
Yep.
They do that everywhere.
Absolutely, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
The police are in on it. Somebody's in on it. I'm convinced somebody at the hotel said something. But that's probably the closest I've come to anything strange.
But no NSA. Okay.
No NSA that I know of, other than her right there.
One in the back.
Next. Way in the back.
Hi, George.
Howdy.
I'm Patty Greer. I did the crop circle talk yesterday.
How did that go? Obviously well.
It was a gas.
What's your theory, by the way, on that? What do you think's happening?
I wish you had heard my talk.
I was in St. Louis.
I work directly with them, and that sounds so silly to say, but my question to you is, I've done almost every radio show. Why haven't I done your show yet?
I'll defer that to my producer, Tom Danheiser. Tom? Oh, he's not here.
He's talked to me twice. Anyway, I am so glad I got to say that to you.
No, have you pitched them hard?
I've talked to Tom, and I don't even want to say this out loud, but I did talk to Lisa. I would love to be on your show, and it's about friggin' time.
Now tell me, though, why haven't you been on? Why do you think? So I can probe it a little bit more.
You are the most... I'm clueless. It's the only show. Everybody I've called is like, bang, in a week or 2 weeks or a month. But your show, I have been waiting, so I am so delighted just to say it to you and have everybody here that heard me yesterday. Was it on a 1 to 10? Was it different than most crop circle talks?
All right, I will give you my word. We'll push it and I'll get into it.
Thank you.
Okay.
So what I believe in the crop circles is that they're definitely messages from another world. We've got humans, of course, doing the Doug and Dave distraction, but without a doubt, there's so many deciphered and decoded messages that it should be common knowledge. The only reason that we don't know that there were 69 in England alone last summer and 56 more in all these other countries is the press. It stops there. But there's crop circles everywhere, and nobody's talking about it because the press has done something amazing to slip it under the rug, and that's why I'm not on your show. I don't talk about the pretty pictures. I talk about the balls of light making them, and I have footage of the balls of light making them, and I've been quieted. But your show, I'm ready for you.
I'll get you on, girl. You make sure I personally get your information before I leave Dodge, all right? Oh, that's right. We have a party.
Hello.
Howdy.
My name is Mike. I'm from St. Louis. I drove in from Jefferson City.
Oh, hey, Mike. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
How was the weather out there today?
Pretty good.
Good.
Have you seen the movie Thrive or Sirius? It's on the subject of...
I've seen Sirius. I've had Dr. Stephen Greer on the program.
Okay,
And
very good.
it's a remarkable documentary and very strange, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. Have you seen Thrive?
No, I have not.
It's kind of related. He's also on that one as well.
Okay. Sirius is, of course, about a small, what could be an extraterrestrial. Nobody really knows yet, but it's very strange. With strange DNA, they just can't figure out exactly what this creature is. It's only about this big, but truly looks like a little ET. Elongated head and everything else. And it lived. I mean, it wasn't like, an aborted fetus or anything like that. This thing they thought lived 4 to 5, 6 years. Yes.
George, I listen to your program all the time during the afternoon or mornings, and you have so many wonderful people, so many enlightened people on your show. It's just amazing. Number one question, who picks out all those people? Number two, I get chills when I listen to these people, and we are a transformation conference here, Do you receive the same kind of higher frequency from these people as you're doing the show?
I have learned so much doing Coast to Coast. This evolution for me over the past 10 years has been unbelievable. So yes, I pick up things, I'm learning things from all of them. In terms of who brings in the guests, we've got a series of different things. Either I do, like in Pam's case, I'll go to my producer and say, I want this person. They do, and then a number of other people solicit. We get a lot of emails from listeners who have ideas from certain guests and things like that. Keep in mind, we're the only syndicated show that is live 7 nights a week. That's a lot of programming. And as you well know, on holidays, we don't shut down. Most talk show hosts around this country want to spend time with their family, and that's good, but they're not on the air, they run tapes. We don't. I made this pledge when I came in 10 plus years ago that we will be live on every holiday, and if that holiday falls on a day I'm working, I'll be there. And if for some reason one of my weekend folks doesn't want to do it or has some commitment, I'll go in and do it for them. My pledge then, and is still now, is we will always have live programming for you. Because you never know when something's going to happen. So we've done it, we will do it, and it pays off. And plus there are a lot of people on holidays who don't have the benefit of having family. And this radio show has become their family for them. And so on holidays, I want them to open up their house, turn on their radio, and there we are. Thank you.
Hey, George, I'm from Springdale, Arkansas, Luke Burton.
Hello, Luke.
Hey, of all your guests and different topics on your show, like Bigfoot, hunting, Ouija board stuff, dowsing, UFOs, have you ever had an experience or seen anything?
I have seen these very strange little shadow creatures. They were scurrying across the road once, with funny-looking antennae. They looked like armadillos, but they weren't. And then I've had some strange little ghostly encounters, and strange things happen to me, like most of us have. You put your keys on a table, and you go and get them, and they're gone. And then you go looking around for them, and they're back there again. I mean, almost like there's some ghost playing little tricks on us or things like that. I've had a lot of things happen like that, but I think the biggest thing that has happened to me is a strangeness of being precognitive about certain things. There was a time, and I've talked about this on the show before, that I'm driving up through a green light at a four-way intersection. Well, it's green. You keep going. You don't stop. Something told me, don't go through. And I had cars behind me, and we're doing about 45 miles an hour, and something said, stop your car. Don't go through. And I've never had that feeling that hard before. And so as I come up to the intersection, green light, I stop. And at that moment, somebody had gone through his red light and would have broadsided me. I don't know how this happens, but I'm beginning to think that we have this connection with what's out there, and it's a protective mechanism, and it allows us to tap into things like that. And I think that's what happened to me. These things are happening to me far too often now. There are no coincidences. Yes. Over there, okay. We got a lot of hands.
Hi, my name is Marilee Kinsey. I used to live in St. Louis County, and thank you for taking my call.
You are welcome. I've got to go to a commercial, though. I'll be right back.
And I have to hold.
Some people have held for up to 2.5 hours.
Incredible.
In a program. I mean, I have a little clock on this computer screen of mine, and it tells you how long that they've waited, and it's unbelievable sometimes. Somebody comes, but they don't want to hang up.
My question is,
That's right.
most of the media are under a gag order on certain topics. On your show, Coast to Coast, is it possible for you to interview someone else who's not under a gag order to talk on a certain subject that would normally be bleeped? Well, if you weren't under the gag order.
No, we have never been under a gag order, and I would think almost all the guests we've interviewed have not. They say it the way they feel it. I've never really had anybody hedge their bets or hedge what they're going to say.
I have a guest for you that I'd love to hear you interview that has their own website online and wants to get the news out about the law that was passed in, I guess it was 2000, by Bill Clinton, signed into law but never enacted. It was ratified but not enacted, and it's called NESARA, N-E-S-A-R-A.
Was that just an executive order?
It was an act that was enacted, and we're waiting for some miraculous thing. There's some reason why it's not being enacted, but it would definitely change everything for the better, and I would love to have you interview this one guest that is very knowledgeable about that subject.
Okay, well, get everybody the information for me. Show of hands. Hold your hands up so he knows where he's going. There he is. Phil Donahue in the background, running.
Ken Elliott gives his wishes to your producer, Ken Elliott out of Colorado.
Hi, Ken.
But anyway, concern that I have, and I know that you had something on a program about the food supply, particularly of what's happening with Monsanto, and hate to say this word, Tyson, here in Arkansas, about what's happening with our food supply. I've heard reports that we're dumbing down Americans, causing obesity. What was really covered in your show? I went to bed before that happened.
Shame on you. We do a lot of programs on genetically modified foods. I mean, come on. If you were at a grocery store and you saw a sign that said, this tomato has been genetically modified, compared to one that wasn't, which one are you going to buy? And they're paranoid that there's going to be that kind of effort. I find it interesting that 2 days ago, Monsanto is pulling out of the European market with 3 genetically modified foods. Yeah. Good for you. I think it's dangerous to play around with Mother Nature, and one day this is going to bite us all in the behind in a big way. And, you know, the bees are dying, the food system is all screwed up. These poor kids in India, though they say they may have been poisoned, 23 kids died with foods that were genetically modified. Something's going on with that. So our shows are constantly toward that direction. Yes?
Hi, Mr. Noory.
Hello.
My name is Laura Josser, and I'm from Sapulpa, Oklahoma.
Okay.
And I just wanted to know, have you ever been truly frightened by a guest or a topic?
Yes. Do you remember the name Benjamin Krem, the representative of the so-called Antichrist, whom he said was the Maitreya? This guy, when he was on the air, I was getting emails and fast blast messages from listeners who were getting sick, physically sick. The more he talked, I mean, he seemed like a pleasant guy, but the more he talked, the weaker people got, until it got to a point where I was beginning to feel woozy, and I had to take him off the air because it was just a very strange circumstance. And he said, well, okay. And I don't know if he's the world's greatest trickster or doesn't realize what he's doing because of who he thinks he represents. But it was the most bizarre thing I've ever gone through. That was a scary part. There was another episode where, you know, I've bounced a few guests off the air, not a lot, but we had a guy on who was supposed to talk about his visit to Portugal to talk to the then Sister Lucia, one of the children in Fatima. And he said he had this exclusive, she told him the third secret and all this. And so when he's on the air with me, and my first question to him was, so tell me about this meeting with Sister Lucia. He said, I can't, it was confidential. And I'm going, I've got 3 more hours to go. So we went to a commercial. I had producer Tom talk to him and said, look, if you don't talk about why you want it on, we're going to have to end the interview. And I went back, and he said, well, we'll see what we can do. Came back on, asked him again, said the same thing, and I just ended it, went to open lines. When you hear us go to open lines early, something has happened to the guest. You know. I mean, I remember a day I was on, 3-hour interview with the guest. See, with Dolores, you don't have to worry about that. With Dolores, you ask her one question, you can go to the bathroom and come back, and she's still talking. You don't have to worry about that. But with so many other people, you ask them a question, and you go, so, was the devil really in that room? Yes? Hello? So those things do happen. Yes, who's next?
Hi, Joan from St. Louis.
Hello, Joan.
Hello.
Have you emailed me before?
No.
Okay.
But I will.
I get a lot of Joans from St. Louis.
I want to know what happened to the Coast to Coast in St. Louis on 550.
Oh, I'm on 97.1.
All right.
It was a perfect, seamless transition. I made that switch.
Okay.
It was a very strong FM signal, and the ownership carries my show in some of their other markets. And, you know, we were #1 in St. Louis on KTRS. I had been there 16 years. I heard rumors that they may get sold, and so 97.1 jumped up and said, do you want to switch? And we said, yeah, let's do it. So that's where we are.
I worked 3rd shift, and I was ready to quit my job.
Yep, same time,
Need
everything.
my coast to coast.
It never was off the air. It went straight to 97.1.
All right, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Happy now, right? Yeah.
George, my name's Matt Rowland from Jefferson City, Missouri. First, I just want to thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
And also, I just am concerned with what's going on right now with our rights. And do you have any concerns on shows like yours and Alex Jones's and Michael Savage's being banned? Is there anything that indicates that they could try to do that next? And if so, what could we do to prevent something like that from happening?
I think if it ever comes to a point where programs like Coast to Coast are banned because of our views, we're all in trouble, and we all have lost. I don't think that's going to happen. We happen to work for a network that is very aggressive with its programming. Not once have they ever dictated to me what guests to put on or what not or what to say. They just let me go. And, you know, it helps to have high ratings, of course, and, you know, the revenue stream comes in from our advertisers. You know, we don't charge. Some of the other programs charge the stations to run the shows. We don't. We give it to them, and then we sell advertising within. So all the advertisers you hear are supporting the program, and the stations get the show for free. They don't have to pay anything for it, and that has worked a lot too. But you know, to answer your question specifically, Matt, I don't think we will ever get bumped off the air over some governmental attack.
Yeah, that's good. That's coming.
Thank God.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Who's next? Who do we have here? Boy, you're going to get your exercise today, huh? He was 500 pounds when we started this speech.
Hi, my name is June Milligan, and I'm...
Oh, you're the one with the NSA.
Yeah, all the notes.
That's right.
And I'm from Reno, Nevada. I'm wondering, what are the trends now? What are people wanting to hear about?
On radio?
Yes.
I think people want to know primarily about themselves. What's affecting them, alternative medicine, government intervention, control. I have seen a dramatic change in 10 years, where, as you well know, Coast to Coast was 95% paranormal.
Yeah.
Now it's conscious awareness, it's alternative medicine, it's government intervention. Yes, it's Bigfoot and UFOs and things like that as well. But people are becoming more and more aware that there's something very strange going on here. I have talked for the last 2 years that I still feel something impending happening. And a lot of people feel that. Don't you feel that still? I mean, it's like the hammer's about ready to come down. We just don't know what it is yet. You're welcome. Now go back and report that to the Pentagon on Monday.
Hi, George.
Hi.
My name's Candace. I live in rural Kansas. I work with Dolores and her practitioners who do her method all over the planet. One thing we notice when we are doing our healing sessions, we work just as Dolores teaches us, that we have very often electrical interference in our work. We digitally record our sessions. Very often nothing's there. Lights go on and off. Things like that happen. I wondered, since you work in a radio station with electrical equipment, do you find that similar things happen during your shows?
One time, when I had a Ouija board in the studio. This thing was in the studio. I was going to talk about it. Everything went wrong. The board went out. The computers went down. I had it taken out. Everything went back up again and stuff like that. But in terms of other kinds of communication disruption, we've been pretty fortunate there. Nobody's tried to push the button on us yet. Yes.
Hi, George. I'm Patrick from Switzerland, and I'm also a quantum healing hypnosis practitioner. And I have a question. We had a reunion just prior to this transformation conference. It was a reunion of practitioners, and we did an experiment. We called it the SC Summit. There were 3 people on stage put into trance, and they answered to questions from the audience. Now, this can lead to very interesting information, and I was wondering, have you ever considered or had such a live presentation in your radio show?
As long as you promise not to put those in cars under a trance. That's always been a concern of mine, to have a hypnotist on and somebody's driving a car and they're zoned out. That's always a possibility. But yeah, we've talked about that, about doing something like that, about doing live exorcisms on the show and things like that. It is unpredictable. I thought for a moment you were going to try to hypnotize me.
I'm Karen from Southwest Missouri.
Hi, Karen.
And I have a comment and I have a question.
Okay.
Okay, my first comment is thanks to you is how I discovered Dolores Cannon because I heard her on your show.
Perfect.
So that's awesome. And then I was wondering if you have a favorite guest.
Dolores Cannon. Other than Dolores, I like a lot of them. I mean, they all bring something unique to the program, whether it's people like Richard Hoagland or Lloyd Pye or anybody else like that. I mean, I really do. I like them all, but none like I like Dolores. How'd I do? Yes.
With so many things, my name's Jose. Have no idea where I'm from, but I live in Dallas, Texas.
Great city.
Yeah. One of my questions is, with all the things that we have to be aware of as far as mind control and genetically modified food, I rarely hear people ever talk about machines and the evolution of machines and how machines are evolving by the second. And there's the whole singularity movement, and I just want to know what your opinion of that was, and is there a possibility that you may fear this, or should we be excited about machines, and like, what are your views about
Funny that you say that. We're working on a show on robots and how they are and could take over the planet in an unbelievable way. I mean, we think that they're just technical machines. Eventually, they'll have brains where they're be able to make their own minds up and tinker with stuff and do things. So we're working on that. It's a huge story. And by the way, isn't this something that today is the 44th anniversary of the landing on the moon? Isn't that something? Let's not forget that. What a remarkable achievement. Now, anybody here think we did not go to the moon? Really? Couple here. Okay, yeah, I think we did. That's all right.
George.
Hi.
Adele McCarran, and I too am from Dallas, Texas. I'm a longtime listener to Coast, and I want to commend your show and all the guests. And I want you, if you will, please, to tell us a little bit more about your aunt, who was
Shafika.
MD, and,
yes.
And died. But she was also interested in metaphysics.
She was a psychiatrist and changed her practice to the study of telepathy and the paranormal. She wrote a book called Breakthrough to Creativity, and this was happening in an era where nobody was doing this. One of her best friends, the late Ingo Swann, the father of remote viewing, and she was into this in a big way, and she was doing experiments with people. Keep in mind, she was a medically trained doctor, a psychiatrist, and she believed that there was something else out there allowing people to do strange things like telepathy. Died in Beverly Hills, California, when a radio, of all things, fell in her tub, and she got electrocuted. Very bizarre story. But she was one of the pioneers in this area. Shafika Corregula, her name.
Hi, George. My name is Christina, and I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas. And tonight on the show, I was reading about the truth in the media, and I know someone else asked a question about the media, but I was wondering what your opinions were on the party system, the current party system.
Oh, well, we probably need more than just the two major ones. That's for sure. Because they're the same. You get a cookie cutter person in, and they're the same. I would have supported Ron Paul because I think he's more for the people. I'm a little disappointed in President Obama. I thought he had a great mandate and had some great promise. I think he could have rallied a lot of Americans behind him. I think he may be guilty of listening to the wrong person and, rushed his health care program a little too soon and things like that. But by and large, we probably need more than two parties in this country. We really do. Yeah. Way in the back. Hi there.
Dave Bodell from Tucson, Arizona. Oh, west of the Rockies.
Hello, David.
How you doing? My question is, I've only listened to you since day one.
That's all?
That's all. Sorry. Well, plus Art for the 15 years before that.
Who?
Whatever that guy's name is.
Oh, the person
Yeah.
you introduced me as.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
that guy, yeah. There's one thing I'd really love a favor of you somehow to be able to do this. I look on your website. I travel across the country. It drives me crazy to try to find a radio station that you're on in the locale that I'm at. Can you list all of the radio
They
stations?
are.
I
They're
haven't
there.
find it. Where's
Oh,
it
no,
at?
no, it's right there. You go to the website.
Okay.
Right at the top it says stations.
Okay.
Click that, and then you have to click the map of wherever you're going. All right, and then they're all listed.
Fantastic.
Perfect. What's that? www.coastam.com. Don't put the 2 in the middle. It's got to be TO. The 2 is a porn site. You don't want that. It is. I'm not on it, but it is. Yes.
Speaking of the moon, would you briefly explain the jump room program, and do you think it's real?
Now, you're going to have to educate me on that. I'm not familiar on that.
Then we'll drop the subject.
Click. But I'll check into that. Or maybe you will when you're on the show. Hello there.
That's me.
Yes, it is.
I'm Jan from Atlanta, Georgia. When I listen to you do
You're Sylvia Brown, the psychic, aren't you?
Don't tell everybody. When you do an interview with a client and they've just written a book, you are a tremendous interviewer when you ask some of the great questions. I feel like you must spend all your life reading to know what to pull out of that book that we want to know. So how much time do you spend in prep for an interview with someone you don't know?
Let me explain my day to you, just so you can get an idea. The guests are generally picked out a week or 2 in advance. When I wake up in the morning, I have a home office. I'll go through my emails. I'll pick the bumper music I want to play that night. I'll send my producers news guests ideas. You notice that I do a news segment at the top of the show, and a lot of these people come on to react about breaking stories. I'll set all that up and do that, and then we start prepping the guest. Sometimes their books never show up, which means I really have to buckle down and start doing more work on who they are and what they're doing. Other times the book will be there 2 weeks in advance. It's easier because then, you know, I can read it, thumb it, take notes from it, and do that. But it's an ongoing process. So for a 4-hour live show, there's probably 6 to 8 hours of prep time that goes on before that. And so it's pretty intensive. Okay? You're welcome.
Kelly from Kansas.
Hello, Kelly from Kansas.
You always ask, do you sleep with your hand over the edge of the bed? Until about a month and a half ago, yes, always. Left hand over the edge of the bed.
That changed, though.
And you just answered my other question. But I do sleep with it over the bed until recently.
Why'd you change?
I dislocated my shoulder about a month and a half
Oh,
ago.
well, that'll do it.
I can't sleep on that arm anymore.
So you weren't afraid that something was going to grab your arm under the bed?
Afraid. This is the thing. I was always afraid of the Clutter family. When I was growing up, the fear was somebody coming into our houses and trying to steal from the safe because we didn't live very far from the Clutter family. So that was my fear.
Well, how many of you sleep with your arm over the edge of the bed? Not a lot of people. Yes, what do we got?
Next question.
Raise your hands. We're going to do a little meet and greet when this is done as well. Don't forget there's a reception after this also. My little mixer.
Hi.
Hi. Will there be drinks at this mixer? I need a little Merlot. Hi.
Hi, I'm Nidra from Mississippi. I want to ask, sometimes I hear a replay of one of your shows, but they don't say when the show actually aired. Can you tell me why they don't tell us?
They're supposed to have an announcer on it saying, this show aired originally, da 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 da. I'll check into that. Sometimes the local stations might take that off. Yes.
I want to know what the deal is about hanging your, or having your hand over the side of the bed.
Oh, because there's something under the bed. It'll grab you and pull you under. That's what my mom told me. Isn't that true?
Hello, it's Laura from Mattoon, Illinois.
I know it well.
I can't say I've ever listened to your show, I know.
Oh, really? Would you take her mic away from her, please? Thank
I'm
you.
going to be starting when I get home next week.
You have to.
We'll
As a matter of fact, my commanding officer, when I was in the Navy, owned 2 radio stations in Mattoon. His name was J.R. Livesey.
Livesey, yeah.
Did you know the family?
Yes, we know.
See?
Jim Livesey. Anyway, the question is, out of all these years, obviously since I haven't listened, is there one program that has impacted you the most over all these years?
Well, you know, we do get interesting phone calls from people. I got one several years ago from a woman who said that her husband got abducted by aliens, that he was never late coming home, but he came home this time and told her he was abducted. And she's calling me saying, George, he was so nervous, they did something to him. I'm thinking, what they do, probe him? Who knows? And she said he was shaky, he was sweaty. And do you know what else they did to him? And I said, no, what? Those extraterrestrials, they took his wedding ring. The guy forgot to put his ring on. Then I had a lady who called me crying one day, very sad. She said that she couldn't see any stars. And I, of course, sometimes being the demon that I am, said, oh, they all burned out. And then she started crying. And I said, stars have a finite life to them. So all the stars that you see, they're gone. And she started really crying. And then I said, oh, by the way, what's it like where you live right now? She says, it's cloudy out. Then I got a call from a guy who was, said he almost killed himself. He was close to committing suicide. And he was trying to contemplate where he wanted to go to do himself in. And he was telling me this story. And he says, so George, I got in my car, I drove to about an hour away, found a little lake on the side of a road, and that's where I was going to go and kill myself. I was depressed. I hated everything, my job, my relationship, everything. And while I was there contemplating how I was going to do this little old man came by and sat down next to me, a little old farmer, coveralls, sat down right next to me. There's nobody there. He sits down next to me. And we just started talking about everything, about life and about this. And after that hour, he made me feel so good. I thanked him and I went back. I wasn't going to kill myself. I stopped. I went back to where I was living, got a new job, changed my relationship, got married. Life is good. A year later, I decided to go back to thank that guy. He saved my life. I didn't get his name, his full name. So it was a little tiny town. There was like 1,000 people who lived there. There's only one barber shop there. He's got to go to that. So I went to the barber, and the barber said, I know who you're talking about. He lives in the White House. So he went to the White House. He knocks on the door. A woman comes there. It's obviously his daughter. She's in her late 20s, 30s. And he said, ma'am, I don't want to disturb you, but about a year ago, your father saved my life. I just want to thank him. I want to tell him what I'm doing now. And she said, well, wait. You're the 5th person to come up and say that to me. My father died 15 years ago. I mean, and I heard that, and it was just chilling. I got a call from a Springfield, Massachusetts police officer. He was working that night, and he's on the phone with me talking about some paranormal experience he had, and he said, "Oh my God, George, somebody's out here stealing a barbecue pit from the Home Depot. He's wheeling it away." I said, "Well, go get." He said, no, I'll stay on. You know, they had these like lapel phones. So he goes running up to this guy, arrests him, and on the air, he says, "You've just been arrested and you're on Coast to Coast." And you could hear the guy going, "What's that?" Well, I think he knows now.
Hi, George.
Hi.
I'm Luann.
Hello.
I just have a real quick question about, with all the causes and information and all the things going on the planet, what are the most important issues that you think that we should pay attention to, or if there's just one?
I think first and foremost, you need to take care of your own health, because without that, you can't help the people you care about. If you aren't healthy, your attitude's going to change, everything's going to change, and that to me should be rule number one. Take care of your health the best way you can. Modern medicine is good. I have no complaints about that. I think Big Pharma is trying to pump too many pills down our throats and stuff like that, and you should do the alternative and the spiritual as much as you can. But that's your first and foremost goal. Take care of that first. You will find everything else falls into place after that. You really do. And with that, I would wish that you would continue to keep my sister in your prayers. She has been battling stage 4 brain cancer. She had a tumor removed about 8 months ago, and last week the doctor said it's growing back. And her daughter's getting married in September, and her only wish is to make that wedding. It's a very advanced stage. Nobody knows why she's sick and we're not, except she did one thing that my other sister, and I have never done, and that's spending an inordinate amount of time on a cell phone. And her tumor was right here, and guess where she held her phone? She was on the phone for hours a day, talking to her daughters and everybody else. I'm convinced that had something to do with it. But throw her in your prayers. Her name's Glinda, if you would. Yes?
Yes, I'm Cindy from Forest City, Arkansas, and before you had your out-of-body experience, did you have a specific religious or spiritual view, and has it changed since you've grown and done all the different type of shows?
At the point, I was 11 years old, so I was pretty young to have a real strong religious view. But I was raised a Catholic then. I mean, I got my communion, and I did all these things, and I'm still a Catholic, but not a practicing one. I think religion is for each person to decide what they want to do. I'm very spiritual. I believe that there's a higher power. I'm still seeking the answers, what that might be. But in terms of organized religion, for me, it is not. Some of the things the Catholic Church has done in hiding situations with its priests and stuff have tremendously turned me off. And I just think that I have a better connection with the man upstairs without going through anything organized. If you do it, if you're organized, that's, you know, that's for you. Far be it for me to tell you otherwise. Yes.
Hi, I'm Christy from
Hi, Christy.
Branson, and I was, actually I had a question, and then you just brought up your sister Linda, so I just thought I should kind of get this out there. I cured myself from cancer and lupus,
Good for
and
you.
I don't know, all sorts of other stuff, so I just wanted to know if you knew about Verkoiden, and if she does want to heal naturally, I would be happy to help. Just get that out of the way. The question
we've tried to, she's taking some stuff, but she wants to rely on traditional medicine.
Yeah,
Very
that's-
difficult to get her to do that otherwise.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We can't force anyone to
No.
want to heal, but I do have a 100% success
Thank
rate.
you.
Brain cancer, big tumors sticking out of people's heads, and So if she was open to that. The question is, though, of all of the guests that you've had on the show, who has inspired you to make changes in your life the most?
Dolores Cannon. That's an interesting question. I think all of them, in some form or fashion, all of them have contributed to things that I'm becoming in my own metamorphosis, my own, whether it's Rosemary Ellen Guiley, who's an expert in dreams, to, Lionel Fanthorpe, who's a great storyteller in British Columbia, to, physicists, James McCanney, who talk about what the sun is up to. I think all of them have given me a little piece of something. I think Coast to Coast listeners have earned PhDs just listening to the show. I really do. You are by far, and you might as well give yourself a round of applause here, the most educated radio listeners in the history of broadcasting. Nobody knows what you know. Nobody. So give yourself a hand.
I do have one question for you as well, George.
Yes, sir.
You've been involved in this for a very long time, and what I would like to know is your belief, have we been visited by other cultures that may be external to our world?
Besides the woman from the NSA.
The NSA is not counted.
Yeah, I think so. I think Zecharia Sitchin's theory of extraterrestrials coming here and seeding us, I think the book of Genesis clearly points out of some kind of visitation, fallen angels and things like that. What's that all about? I think we've been visited. I think we're still being visited. Hello there.
Hi, I'm Sarah from Fort Gibson, Oklahoma.
Hello, Sarah.
What ancient site have you heard about that you are most interested in visiting or that you have visited that just fascinates you from what you've heard about it?
I would like to go see the pyramids at Giza in Egypt, if things ever calm down out there.
So what about the Bosnian Pyramids, and have you heard about them?
I've heard about the Bosnians. We've done a couple of shows on them. Richard Hoagland's going out there in another month or two. That too is fascinating. I'm really perplexed at how these pyramids are all over the planet. I mean, it's just like somebody had a plan and did it. Hi there.
Mary Lee again, thank you.
Now, you know the 30-day phone call rule, don't you, Mary Lee?
I know that. Frustrated, I hadn't called in years. Just listening.
So now you have 2 in one day.
Well, this question is about, what do you think about Billy Meyer being visited from the Pleiadians, and there's some book that's written called The Talmud of Emmanuel that some people think that even Billy is a reincarnation or a time traveler.
He might be. All I know is Billy Meyer took amazing film footage of UFOs at a time that we did not have computers and Photoshop and things to doctor. And if those are real, it's amazing. If they're not real and he concocted it, he may be one of the greatest film guys ever. I think there's a lot of truth to the Billy Meyer story. Yeah, he's only got one arm. Yes, hi, sir.
John from Oklahoma. Just curious, but what is your opinion on John Teeter?
The time traveler.
Yes, sir.
Great story. Interviewed Teeter's family's attorney out of Florida. He's convinced there's something strange going on. He's been retained by the family. It's been a couple of years now. John Teeter was a time traveler who started contacting our website and art show years ago, talking about all these bizarre things, some of which are coming true right now, by the way. And he apparently was from the year 2036. If you believe that one day science will be able to do that, then there's no reason not to speculate that maybe they're here. You know, as strange as it might sound, 500 years from now or 200 years from now, if there's time travel, That's all very possible. I don't rule it out. There was a picture that I saw, we had it posted on our website, in the 1800s of a guy walking down the street holding a cell phone. It was weird. How does that happen? Who else do we have? Of the person with the phone? Yeah.
They couldn't hear you. Okay, I said, at the UFO conference we did in April, the man showed a film. The film they're talking about, it's real old, and the person was walking down the street talking on a cell phone. And it was way back, I think, when they hardly even had cameras or anything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's take a few more, and I want to give the remaining 30 minutes or so to a meet and greet, because how many of you want to do a little meet and greet after this event with some pictures and stuff? Okay, we'll do that too.
Hi, George. I'm Diane from Huntsville, Arkansas.
Hello, Diane.
Hello. I wonder, do you have any thoughts on why we ended up not going back to the moon?
Could be budget. Could be, well, they've done what they had to do, or they were told not to go back. Could be all of the above. ETs, probably. Yeah, I think if we were told not to go, they told us. Probably through those who run government. The puppeteers, the puppet masters. Yes. Why would they do it? They keep so many things from us, it's unbelievable. Yes, sir.
You've done a lot of things with Dolores. Why haven't you done a session?
You know, this is the first time we've ever met. It's true. It's all on the phone. It's since 1997. This is the first time we've ever met. No, it's always been on the phone.
Yeah.
Yes, Dolores, I'll do whatever you want. I will give you a show every week. That's the plan, isn't it? That's why you invited me here.
Coral Castle in Hollywood, Florida.
Yes.
Okay, all of these rocks were cut, teleported, and everything, and the government interviewed this person. Do you believe that the government knows how he did this?
Somebody knows how he did that. We're talking about Edward Leeds Skolnin, who was 120 pounds from Latvia, who built an incredible coral castle with huge blocks of stone, and he moved it all by himself. I think he had the secret of magnetics, and he was able to push things around and float them and levitate them, but I think government knows. I was talking to a friend of mine who works in a special department of Boeing, the defense contractor, yesterday in St. Louis, and I said, come on, what are you guys working on? And he said, George, I can't tell you. And I said, are you guys aware of anti-gravity planes or anything like that? And he said, I can't tell you. Don't ask me this. He never said no. He just said, I can't tell you. And he was darn serious. So I think government knows a lot. Yes.
Hello, I'm Sharon from Northeast Alabama.
Hello, Sharon.
And I just finally thought of a question to ask you. I've been so excited to see you and couldn't think of anything. Have you kept up with the Bible codes lately? You were talking about other things have come to pass lately. The Bible codes were a big thing for a while, and I haven't heard anything.
No, not lately. I have not. Michael Drosnin's Bible codes. I'll check into that. Maybe there's new stuff for us, because it's probably constantly changing. How about one more, and then we'll do the little meet and greet. Way in the back. Go, go, go.
Go. Where is it?
Right here?
No, she's right in front of you.
Oh, right here. I'm sorry.
All right. Thank you. Oh, thank you for taking my call.
You're very welcome.
I live in Fayetteville, and I'm a 14-year Coast listener. By the way, Fayetteville Station quit carrying you, and that's hard.
Shame on them. We'll
Anyway,
replace them.
I wanted to bring up a really disturbing subject that I would love to hear you cover. I found out about it through Natural News newsletter, Mike Adams. It was actually something that happened in 2009 that just broke about a woman in New York who woke up in the middle of surgery and they were about ready
Yes.
to harvest her organs.
Yes, she had been in a coma for a couple of years.
Yeah, well, no, about a week. And apparently the nurses had said she was responding. They did not, she had a drug overdose. They did not give her activated charcoal to get the drugs out of her system. It came up because the health department was fining the hospital. They FOIA'd it. But it freaked me out so bad I stayed up all night one night studying the subject, and it's apparently not all that unusual. And the declaration of dead is becoming a real gray area, and hospitals are sometimes putting more energy into hovering over people to get their organs instead of doing the life-saving procedures. And just the whole thing about organ transplants, given that some people take on the person when they have the transplant and all that, it just seems like there needs to, well, I love your perspective on vaccines and cancer and all that. That's my favorite subjects, is the whole health thing and the GMOs and the food. And it just, some of us are scared to death to go into a hospital for a whole lot of reasons, and that just added another one. But I just really like to see that whole subject covered, because it seems like we need to focus more on being healthy and clean air and clean water and eating right, instead of always just doing organs like they were car parts. And this whole thing, as I stayed up all night so I wouldn't have to go to sleep and have a nightmare, I would really love to see some of that covered. 'Cause
It's
that is
organ
some of the-
transplants and selling, huge business
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
hospitals. Huge
exactly.
business indeed. We did a show once on people who had operations, and under anesthesiology, they were still awake. They actually knew and could tell what was happening, that they were being cut on, and unbelievable stuff. So that's a great subject as well. Anybody have any more before we do the, yes? That's okay, scream.
I'm going to start listening to your show. I have to.
Well, I would hope so.
Okay, but on PBS, public, I heard a program about this man who wrote, or I don't know if he's a doctor or he's a scientist, wrote a book. And he says that the thing is that our bodies are worth over $3.2 million when they are harvested little by little, by parts, okay? So now it is a very well documented book. I can't think for the life of me the name of the guy, but it would be very interesting, because he was on PBS on a Saturday morning at 10 o'clock in the morning last year. And that is the reason, And my father had a heart transplant. This was 17 years ago. And the price of the transplant was $530,000. That was Dr. DeBakey, the one that did it in Houston.
One of the first, yeah.
So we are worth more parts. Like
We're worth more dead than alive, aren't we? $3.2 million?
Yes.
Your body parts are worth $3.2 million? What are you doing tonight?
Well, they harvest everything. They harvest the skin. They harvest everything. And I don't think that is right, because I just don't think. But thank you very much.
You are very welcome. How are we doing on time? How are we doing on time? We got time for the meeting? Okay, the meet and greet will be 25 minutes or so. Okay, why don't you make a little announcement about the little meet and greet after this? The little get together. The little dinner, the thing, the banquet.
Oh, yeah.
How many of you are going to that? How many of you aren't?
See, it's already, you
You
don't
got
have to
some.
advertise it.
Well, tell them where it is and where, what.
It's here.
What do you mean here? Here?
No.
You're going to call me Art Bell in there too?
Free lunch every day, and it's where we have the lunch. It's on the other side of the vendor room, which is just right down the hall. George, can I tell a little story? It deals with your show.
Sure.
I think I
Come
told
on up here.
it. Okay. I think I told it on the air for your show after the last one, but it was a weird thing that happened. You know, a lot of people can't listen all night, so they
Right.
record. And I got an email after I did your show. This has not been the last one, it's a couple back. And these 3 ladies said they all recorded the show with these, it's a different kind of a tape recorder that
Different,
goes a long
for the
time.
versicorder, or there's a couple different kind that they can do.
Okay. And they said the next morning they wanted to play it back, and gave what they got. The one played the show back, and it didn't get any show. There was a sports game on instead. And she calls the station, and they said, oh, we're not carrying George Noory anymore. That was what was on. But they gave the call letters of the station. So then the other woman, they were all friends, she got the same thing, a recording of the sports show. The third one got the show. What happened? Did it give out?
There you go.
The third woman got the recording of the show. And they all had the call letters on all 3 of these. Now, what happened there? One of them got the show, the other 2 didn't, living in Memphis. And it was a week or so later, I did a talk in Memphis. They all showed up. They said, we came to just tell you this really happened, and they're elderly women. We did not lie. We have the tapes to prove this. Now, what happens? Did we, you know, we go in and out of dimensions. Did that mean in one dimension the show was there, and the other dimensions it didn't exist?
Tell me the dimensions I'm not on the air.
But
because we'll fix
said,
that.
She said later, when she called the show, a day or 2 later, they're carrying it again. So what happened? Did they go into another dimension and come back again, or what?
You never
do you
know.
think?
You never know. How about a little meet and
Now
greet?
he is
Want to
in
do it
all
right over here?
dimensions.
Do a little
Now he's
quickie thing over there.
broadcasting everywhere, all dimensions.
Thanks, by the way, to all of you for supporting Coast to Coast. Appreciate it. Thanks to you, Dolores, for bringing me here. I'll see most of you at the other event.